The CEO saw him draw 3 circles on the floor. 7 minutes later, her engine started. The entire parking lot fell silent when the old man slowly knelt beside the luxury SUV. Employees exchanged confused glances as the billionaire CEO watched him without saying a word. Instead of opening the hood or reaching for expensive tools, he quietly drew 3 circles on the concrete with a small piece of white chalk. Some people laughed. Others pulled out their phones, convinced they were about to witness the strangest failure of the year. But exactly 7 minutes later, the powerful engine roared back to life as if nothing had ever been wrong. No one could explain what had happened, and what the CEO discovered about the old stranger would change not only her company, but her heart forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, second chances, and helping those the world overlooks still matter, please like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Charlotte Hayes had built one of the largest renewable energy companies in the United States. Her headquarters stood proudly in Denver, Colorado, where thousands of employees admired her determination but feared her perfectionism. Every minute of her day was scheduled, every meeting timed, every decision calculated. Success had made her wealthy beyond imagination, but somewhere along the way, it had also built invisible walls around her heart. She trusted numbers more than people and contracts more than compassion. Her late father had once been a humble mechanic who could repair almost anything with patience and wisdom, but Charlotte had buried those memories beneath decades of board meetings and billion-dollar negotiations. That chilly autumn afternoon, Charlotte was preparing to leave for the most important investor presentation of her career. Reporters waited outside. Television cameras had already arrived. Missing the meeting could cost hundreds of millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. As she approached her custom-built electric SUV, the vehicle refused to start. Engineers from her company rushed forward with laptops and diagnostic equipment. Security officers cleared the parking area while executives whispered nervously. Every computer insisted nothing was wrong, yet the engine remained lifeless. Standing quietly near the edge of the parking lot was an elderly maintenance worker named Samuel Brooks. Most employees barely noticed him because he spent his days sweeping sidewalks, collecting trash, and tending flower beds. His faded work jacket was patched in several places, and his worn boots had clearly survived many winters. Few people knew that decades earlier Samuel had been one of the finest mechanical engineers in America before family tragedy forced him to abandon his career and start over from nothing. Pride never allowed him to tell anyone about his past. As technicians argued over software updates and electrical systems, Samuel watched from a distance. Something about the situation reminded him of lessons his grandfather had taught him as a child. Machines, his grandfather used to say, often revealed their problems through patterns rather than force. Samuel quietly asked if he could take a look. Several employees laughed openly. One executive suggested they remove him before he embarrassed the company in front of the media. Charlotte herself almost dismissed him, but something in his calm eyes reminded her of her father. She nodded once and allowed him to approach. Samuel didn't touch the vehicle immediately. Instead, he slowly walked around it, listening carefully, studying the tires, the pavement, even the direction of the morning sunlight reflected on the windshield. Then he reached into his pocket, removed a tiny piece of white chalk, and carefully drew 3 circles on the ground around different points near the SUV. The crowd became even more confused. Some whispered that the old man had lost his mind. Others believed he was performing some strange ritual. Samuel ignored every laugh. He simply stood quietly inside the circles, closed his eyes for a moment, and counted the seconds while observing the dashboard lights through the driver's window. 7 long minutes passed. Then Samuel calmly asked Charlotte to press the start button once more. The executives smirked, expecting another embarrassing silence. Instead, the dashboard illuminated perfectly. The battery synchronized. The cooling system reset itself, and the engine started smoothly as though it had never failed. The parking lot erupted into stunned silence before applause slowly spread among employees. Even the senior engineers stared at their equipment in disbelief. Samuel finally explained what had happened. The circles had never possessed any magical power. They simply helped him remember 3 precise inspection points where tiny vibrations from uneven pavement and recent construction could temporarily interfere with an extremely sensitive grounding sensor unique to that model. The 7 minutes had allowed the electronic protection system to complete its emergency reset cycle naturally without forcing another failed startup. Years of experience, patient observation, and knowledge had solved what expensive computers had overlooked. Charlotte stood speechless. She realized everyone had judged Samuel because of his appearance before anyone considered the possibility that wisdom sometimes wore old clothes. She invited him into her office, where they spent hours talking. For the first time in years, Charlotte listened instead of speaking. Samuel shared stories about designing engines decades earlier, losing his wife to illness, caring for his disabled son, and eventually accepting humble work after life stripped away every title he had ever earned. Yet despite everything he had endured, he refused to become bitter. He believed every person deserved dignity, no matter their job. Those conversations began changing Charlotte in ways no business seminar ever had. She quietly reviewed employee records and discovered dozens of overlooked workers whose talents had never been recognized because life circumstances had pushed them into ordinary positions. Former teachers cleaned offices. A retired military medic worked in shipping. A gifted artist stocked warehouse shelves. Hidden beneath uniforms and name tags were extraordinary stories waiting to be seen. Charlotte launched a new company initiative called Second Chances. Every employee, regardless of position, was invited to share previous skills, education, hobbies, and dreams. Training programs expanded. Promotions became based on potential instead of status. Experienced workers mentored younger employees, while executives spent 1 day each month working alongside maintenance crews, janitors, drivers, and cafeteria staff. Slowly, the culture transformed. Productivity increased, but something even more valuable returned to the company: respect. Samuel never asked for fame or wealth. When Charlotte offered him a large reward, he politely accepted only enough to repair his modest home and pay for his son's medical treatment. The remaining money, he insisted, should create scholarships for children of maintenance workers and custodians. He believed opportunity should reach those who rarely expected it. Charlotte honored every request exactly as he wished. Months later, national business magazines praised Charlotte's company for its remarkable turnaround in employee satisfaction and innovation. Reporters credited brilliant management strategies, but Charlotte always smiled because she knew the truth. The greatest lesson had come not from a consultant or billionaire entrepreneur, but from an elderly man carrying a piece of chalk in his pocket and decades of quiet wisdom in his heart. One winter morning, Charlotte visited the same parking lot before sunrise. The 3 faint chalk circles had long disappeared beneath rain and time, yet she could still picture Samuel standing there while everyone else laughed. She finally understood that the circles had represented something far greater than a mechanical diagnosis. They symbolized patience before judgment, humility before pride, and faith before certainty. Those invisible circles now guided every important decision she made. Years later, when Samuel peacefully passed away, thousands attended his memorial service. Mechanics stood beside executives. Gardeners embraced engineers. Security guards shared memories with company directors. Every person had been touched by the quiet man who proved that true greatness rarely announces itself. Charlotte placed a small piece of white chalk inside the memorial display, not because it possessed any special power, but because it reminded everyone that wisdom often arrives in the hands the world ignores. If this story touched your heart and reminded you never to judge someone by their appearance or job title, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment so more people can discover stories that inspire kindness and hope. Special request: before you leave, comment with the words, Everyone deserves a second chance. We'd love to know how many people still believe that compassion can change lives. As Charlotte looked toward the sunrise outside the company headquarters, she realized success was never measured by the number of buildings carrying your name or the size of your fortune. It was measured by the number of lives you lifted, the respect you showed those others ignored, and the courage to believe that every person, no matter how ordinary they seemed, carried a story capable of changing the world. And all it had taken to begin that transformation was an old man, 3 circles drawn on the ground, and 7 unforgettable minutes that reminded everyone that the greatest miracles often come from simple acts of wisdom, humility, and kindness.